What is going on, guys? Welcome back to BlackTideTV. We're here on The Last of Us Remastered. My first time ever playing through The Last of Us on any console. I finally started The Last of Us Remastered. I've had it on my shelf for months and months. I'm a huge Uncharted fan, and I have to say, as of likely the halfway point of this game, I'm a bigger fan of Uncharted than I am The Last of Us. So feel free to debate that in the comment section down below. Uncharted 2 is my favorite game of all time. I am really enjoying The Last of Us, but there's some very clear differences between the two games, and I might even make a little Last of Us really late review video in a couple days when I finish the campaign. But let me know what you think about that in the comment section as well. We're playing The Last of Us for a very specific reason, and that is because today is the final E3 2018 press conference breakdown video. We're talking about the PlayStation conference, of course. I like to match up my gameplay to my commentary, so if I'm talking about PlayStation, I want to talk about a really big PlayStation game. And of course, they showed The Last of Us Part 2 at E3 this year, and I'd like to kind of wrap it all together with the original Last of Us. So in terms of the other two press conferences, the main stage press conferences that I will not be covering, Square Enix, the press conference itself was really short and universally reviewed to be bad. It wasn't very great. There was only maybe one or two games that I could really get excited about and provide you guys with any extra information or just talk about in any kind of entertaining capacity. And I'd also have to get gameplay. And I have one Square Enix game on my shelf currently, and it would take a long time to get gameplay for that game. I am not a huge Final Fantasy fan, though I will be picking up Kingdom Hearts 3. I could have talked about Kingdom Hearts 3, but we'll be talking about Kingdom Hearts 3 a little bit more in this video as well. They showed a Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer at almost every single press conference this year because they really want to sell that game. And then in terms of Nintendo, I haven't played a Nintendo game in years and years, so I wouldn't even be able to get gameplay. I would like to give my superpower shout out of the day to Ghost Rooster. I'll link his YouTube and Twitter in the description down below because he was going to provide me with Nintendo gameplay. But even then, posting Nintendo gameplay to YouTube is like a risky business because Nintendo Japan is infamous for their eccentric copyright policy. They will strike down your channel to no end if you start posting Nintendo gameplay of any kind. So it would have likely been taken down from my channel in the first week of being up anyway. So no Nintendo, no Square Enix, but we are talking about that PlayStation press conference today. And without further ado, let's hop into this thing. So right off the bat, I have to say that the PlayStation press conference was a little underwhelming. I thought it was going to be one of the best. I thought PlayStation had it in the bag before we started seeing all of the other press conferences. Of course, PlayStation had the advantage of going last. They could see, I mean, obviously they have their press conference all set up ahead of time, but you could see all of the other press conferences, Xbox and all of them first. And you could kind of say, okay, that wasn't very great, that wasn't very great, and then you could compare that to PlayStation. So PlayStation did have a very big advantage because they could come back at the very end and be like, look, this is going to be the best press conference. And they really let me down. I was looking forward to PlayStation. They had a lot of great games in their lineup. They could have shown Red Dead Redemption 2. They could have shown more Call of Duty. They could have shown a lot of these more first-person titles, first-party titles that they are coming out with. And they did show a few, but they had a really strange press conference this year where they wanted to, we're going to focus on the four major games that are coming out in the next little while. They completely forgot about a lot of games that are like right around the corner. For one, what was the game called? Days Gone, that new zombie game coming out. Completely didn't even mention it, not even a teaser trailer. And that game is coming out in February. But they showed stuff for games that are way down the line, like next year, like late holiday next year. And they're like, oh, these are our main title games that are going to carry our franchise for the next couple years. But like, why are you not showing me the games that are right on the verge of coming out? Red Dead, Call of Duty. Like, you have the exclusive rights to show that kind of stuff at your conference. And they did tease a little bit of Call of Duty, but they didn't get into like a big thing like they would every other year. They focused on these four titles, and then they kind of shit the bed for the rest of the conference. Like, it was such a weird conference. They had a intermission, and they were moving their live audience from one studio to another. It was very poorly executed, and in terms of comparing the two big hitters, Xbox and PlayStation, I'd have to say PlayStation had better games and games that I was more interested in because they did talk about them a little bit more in depth. but Xbox had a better presentation overall because it wasn't so clunky and so underprepared. But PlayStation started with The Last of Us Part 2, obviously like their largest title. I don't think you can beat The Last of Us Part 2. Even with some of these very creative games that are coming out, The Last of Us Part 2 is number one on a lot of people's list. The Last of Us, a lot of people consider to be the greatest game of all time. Again, I think Uncharted 2 is a little bit better, but I've just been conditioned to play these action-packed games, whereas The Last of Us is a little bit more slower paced, a little bit more emotional. But that emotional significance is coming back to The Last of Us Part 2. We saw a cinematic trailer that transitioned into a long gameplay segment and then back into some cinematics towards the end. And it's focusing on Ellie this time. She's a little older. She's 19, I believe, in this game. So it's like 5 years after the events of the first Last of Us. So she is the main protagonist, I believe, and we'll be playing as her more than Joel. So she's coming back, and there's a lot of really emotional, impactful stuff in that cinematic, and talking about like how she's worthy and all this kind of weird, like, touching stuff, right? Of course they're going to be getting into that. It's really going to be story driven again, is what I'm saying here. But the gameplay itself also was phenomenal. There's a seamless transition between cutscenes and stealth and melee combat, just as you'd expect from a next-gen Last of Us. The Last of Us I found to be I'm finding it to be very good in terms of a game from last gen. Whereas this game, The Last of Us Part 2, is really taking all of what is available to it in the current gen, and they're going to drive it home. So there's a narrative focus on Ellie, and it's very emotionally significant, and the gameplay does look really, really good as well. Next up, they had their really weird transition, and they had people on a panel talking about little like add-on games while they were moving their live audience. So God of War will have New Game Plus in an upcoming update, and Call of Duty Black Ops 4 had some news. Black Ops 4, we've pretty much debunked all of this news, but the Back in Black maps for Black Ops 3, if you pre-order Black Ops 4 in the PlayStation Store, you can play the Back in Black maps, those 4 remastered maps, on Black Ops 3 before Black Ops 4 comes out. But this is where a lot of people are getting confused. Black Ops 4 will still have those 4 maps. So when you get Black Ops 4, regardless of where you pre-ordered, when you pre-ordered, you will have those 4 remastered maps. This is just an add-on bonus. If you were pre-ordering on the PlayStation Store, you get those maps on Black Ops 3 as well. So those 4 maps, Jungle, Summit, Slums, and Firing Range. They've also announced COD Black Ops 3 is available for free on PlayStation Plus for the next month or so. Destiny 2 had the Forsaken trailer where they killed Cade 6, which was pretty crazy. But Destiny 2, I don't know if they're going to have the gravitas. They don't have the pull that they did at the beginning of their new cycle with Destiny 2. I don't think they have the power to bring players back to the game at this point. Even with this Forsaken update, which is completely rebooting the entire game. Not sure if it's going to entice as many players, especially with so many other great games coming out. Ghost of Tsushima was one of those newer titles. It was revealed at last year's E3, but it was a very, very, very brief teaser trailer. The best way I could describe this game is Samurai Uncharted, because it's basically the same kind of style as we've seen with the Uncharted and Last of Us games. It's the same kind of camera angle, the same kind of combat, the same stealth and parkour, environment traversal, and grappling. There's a grapple hook in it, but essentially you are a samurai in, I think it's feudal Japan. I don't want to say because I'm not exactly sure, but it is a samurai set game. The game looks beautiful. The grass, they start off in a grassy field and the wind is blowing through the grass, and I almost teared up. It was one of the best looking games that I've seen, and I hope it's not just because it's the E3 demo. I really hope the game looks like this. It's of course made by Sucker Punch, which are famous for Sly Cooper and the Infamous series, which is a PlayStation exclusive. So Sucker Punch, I believe, exclusively works for PlayStation now, and they did a great job with Sly Cooper. It's one of my favorite platformers from back on the PlayStation 2 days, PlayStation 1 days, I think. And then Infamous was a really great franchise as well for PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4. But Samurai Uncharted, sign me up. I'm a big fan of this type of style of game, like the Uncharted games, the Last of Us games, and the more games that we get in this kind of style of franchise, like this gameplay style, I'm cool with that. Show me all kinds of different types of games in the same layout. Control came up next, which was a very strange game. It was a really brief kind of reveal trailer, and not too many people were excited about it at first because it was very strange. You've got this weird person with a weird transforming gun walking through all these rooms, and the rooms are breaking off into little squares and floating up into space, and there's time and telekinetic manipulation happening, and you're kind of scratching your head thinking, am I watching Doctor Strange right now? Because that's the kind of visual representation that we have from this video, from this gameplay trailer actually. And it was a really kind of trippy trailer, and everyone was like, okay, yeah, and they're like, Control. This is the new game Control, which is coming out, and everyone's like, yeah, okay, light applause. And then they show who makes it, Remedy Games, who of course are responsible for the Max Payne franchise, Alan Wake, and Quantum Break. So right away, it's a third-person game, much like the Uncharted games, another kind of game in this style. And I am 100% on board for it. It looks really trippy, really weird. It's going to be hard to wrap my head around, but at the same time, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. That game, I don't believe, had a reveal date or even any kind of estimated date for release. That's going to be a couple years out at least. Resident Evil 2 Remastered was revealed, and it will be coming out January 2019. I'm not a big fan of the Resident Evil franchise, I have to say. Just never really struck a chord with me, so I couldn't get as excited as a lot of people did. But a lot of people, supposedly from what I've heard, believe Resident Evil 2 to be one of the best, if not the best Resident Evil game. And to have this remaster, it's going to be a completely new layout, it's going to be completely different, but it's like it's more like a remake than a remaster. So a lot like the Final Fantasy VII remake that's supposedly been in the works. It's going to be a third-person game now. It's just like that. It's going to be completely different from the original as far as I know. Next, they showed a little weird teaser trailer for Trover Saves the Universe. And I think there was like 3 people in the audience clapping about this. It's like, it's made by the people that make Rick and Morty. So I suppose it's like, it's equivalent to The Stick of Truth is to South Park. Trover Saves the Universe is to Rick and Morty, I suppose. That's the only way I can really describe it. Did not interest me in the slightest. So, like I said, 3 people in the audience were clapping. It wasn't a very big reveal. And all throughout this presentation, I should also mention, between each of their little teasers, they showed clips from created things from the game Dreams. So Dreams was not actually announced at the press conference. Dreams has been in the works for years by Media Molecule, the people that made the Little Big Planet series, and it's essentially a game development software, but it's a game in and of itself. So it's a game that you use to make your own games. It's a really, really complicated, really strange process. Like, the whole thing about this game is very confusing, how it's going to work, and they really should have taken the time to explain it, but instead they showed little clips of what other people have made with Dreams. Like, the developers have made these little Dream segments to split up the trailers. So it was kind of strange how they had it like that instead of actually just telling us about Dreams, but there were Dreams segments there in the conference, is what I should say. Kingdom Hearts 3, as I mentioned, of course it pops up. There's Pirates of the Caribbean World. That's the first time we've seen that in any of the Kingdom Hearts 3 trailers for E3 2018. Pirates of the Caribbean World was a part of Kingdom Hearts 2, if I'm not mistaken, and a lot of people really enjoyed that world. It's really interesting to see how when you transition between the worlds in Kingdom Hearts 3, it's like you're playing an entirely different game. The gameplay that they showed from the Pirates of the Caribbean world looked like Assassin's Creed Black Flag. There was ship-to-ship combat, you were piloting your ship, you were firing volleys of cannonballs at your enemy pirate ships. Everything kind of changes, and your character, Donald and Goofy, all of your characters that you're working with in your little posse, they all change as well when you go into different worlds. So when you go to the Pirates world, they all turn into pirates. When you go into Monsters world, they all turn into monsters. Like, I think Goofy turns into like this fuzzy green monster, like a dinosaur. When you go into Toys, they turn into like Lego bricks. So it's really cool to see how they change as they go between the worlds. And to see Pirates of the Caribbean world is coming back is really cool. I am a big fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. And like the characters in there, they are from the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Like, Captain Jack Sparrow is standing there, and he looks like Johnny Depp. I don't know if they did motion capture with the original actors, but they look like the original actors. There's underwater combat as well, or not combat, but underwater segments in that Pirates of the Caribbean world. They show them swimming down underneath and direct ships on the bottom of the ocean. And then, of course, they also showed the Monsters, Inc. world a little bit, where they all turn into monsters, and I've already mentioned that. Death Stranding was the next big title, the third of the 4 major titles that they'll be talking about at PlayStation E3 2018. Death Stranding is the next game from Hideo Kojima. I don't want to say the name because I'm not 100%, but it is a very, very strange title. Death Stranding appeared at E3, I don't want to say 2017, I think it was 2016 or maybe even 2015. It's been in the works for a long time, and all of that time, no one knows a single thing of what is going on. So in this gameplay trailer, first gameplay trailer that we've had, there was a little bit more information. So you make deliveries. They showed a couple different guys all making deliveries. They have these giant crates on their back and cords that are attached to other crates, and they're dragging them behind them. They're climbing up mountains. It looks beautiful. The mountainscapes are really wonderful. The environment looks amazing. There wasn't any combat shown. It was only these people just walking, like walking simulator, delivery, UPS simulator 2018. They were just walking with these crates. I guess they deliver them from one area to another. It looks like scientific equipment is what they're delivering. It is in third person. It's probably a third person action adventure game. I'm not sure if there's going to be shooting elements or if it's going to be, they're definitely hitting at horror elements. So I don't know if there's going to be shooting elements in there as well. But there are these invisible creatures that some people can see. Other people, like Norman Reedus, who's an actor and the main character, I believe, his character can sense them, but he can't see them. But he is talking to a woman in the trailer who can see them, so he can sense where they are, and you see them walk along, and you see their footprints go into the ground, and their footprints are handprints. It's the strangest game I think I've ever seen in my life. There's a little shoulder light that he has that blinks, and when it's flashing, he can see the creatures with this light. There's a little baby in a tube on his chest. It is such a strange game. They had a couple little quotes: give me your hand in life, give me your hand in death, give me your hand in flesh, and give me your hand in spirit. So I'm wondering if the life and death cycle is important. They do show in the gameplay Norman Reedus' character dying, so he is like 100% caught by these invisible creatures and pulled like into hell. So I'm wondering if the life and death cycle is going to play a big part in this game. What is the significance of dying? There was another game, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, that was announced at the Xbox conference, where dying is actually a gameplay element, and you are supposed to die, because when you die, different things happen on your second playthrough of going through that. So it's interesting to see games that are actually involving the act of dying in your games, instead of just saying, oh no, you failed, or do it again, do it again. It's cool to see that the life and death cycle is actually making an impact on where your game is going. There was a Nioh 2 teaser. I'd never played the original, never looked at any information on the original, and so unfortunately I can't help you there. And then the last big game was a lengthy gameplay trailer for Spider-Man, which is coming up, I believe, in September. So this game is on the slate for this year. It's probably their #1 title that people are looking forward to this year. And it was a really great gameplay trailer. They confirmed a ton of new enemies. They are on the Raft Prison, which is famous from Marvel Comics. And we're essentially fighting the Sinister Six. Electro is there, and he is basically breaking everyone out of prison. Rhino gets out, Scorpion gets out, Vulture gets out, and Mr. Negative, who we saw in previous trailers, is also there. But all of these characters are escaping the prison, and they're going and they're making their way back to the city, and they're causing all kinds of trouble. And then there's a mystery figure. So Spider-Man is beat by them at the very end of the trailer, and he looks up, and we're the camera. This new character, this mystery figure who is supposedly behind it all, is the camera, and we're looking at Spider-Man, and he is like, oh no, it's you. Could it be Green Goblin? Could it be Dr. Ock? Could it be Mysterio? It could be any of these really big Spider-Man characters. Supposedly there are a ton of Spider-Man enemies, and this game looks amazing. It's the Batman Arkham of the Spider-Man universe, except dialed up to 11. Insomniac Games is doing a fantastic job with this game from what I've seen from the gameplay. Everyone is super excited about it, myself included. But I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comment section down below. Which of these games are you most excited for? Probably Last of Us Part 2, let's all be honest. But are you excited as well for Ghost of Tsushima? Control looked very, very interesting. Are you a Resident Evil fan? Kingdom Hearts 3, are you yay or nay there? I'll probably pick it up post-launch. I won't be getting it right away, but I will definitely want to pick it up and play it. I did play the originals back on PlayStation 2. Death Stranding, I still want more information there because it's such a weird title. It's such a mind bender. I have no idea what to expect, so I definitely want to see more information from Death Stranding. And then Spider-Man, I'll probably run out like a little fanboy and buy that on day one. So let me know what you're thinking of all of these games in the comment section down below. Would you like to see a Last of Us trailer, or not a trailer, but a review from me in a next couple days? I do have a couple more E3 videos to come. I won't be doing any more press conference breakdowns, but I will have my top 10 most anticipated games from E3 2018 after all of the presentations, what games I'm looking forward to. And I'd also like to talk about the games that were missing from E3 2018. But if you have any other ideas for me for E3 content, let me know in the comment section, hit the like button, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next video.